Let's talk about animal abilities ranging from super strength to literally coming back from the dead. Number 10. The wood frog. Hibernation among frogs is common business, but the wood frog just takes it a step too far. For about 8 months, the wood frog goes into cryosleep. He stops breathing and his heart completely stops beating. Biologically speaking, he is dead. To survive the winter, I would have chosen a good coat or a decent heater, but again, if I lived in Alaska, I would also try to kill myself at least once a year. So he freezes to death and returns to life every spring season. When it's warm outside, it only takes 12 hours for him to thaw out, start eating and having some fun. And that's the whole reason behind offing themselves every year. This allows them to start eating and mating before everyone else. Before you freeze yourself to speedrun this whole life thing, here is what freezing will do to you. First, ice crystals will tear up your blood vessels, and frozen blood means no more sweet oxygen to your organs, meaning irreversible damage. And the worst is that water is drawn out from the cells, causing severe cell dehydration, and ultimately the cells rupture. So how do we end up with scrambled insides and the frog just shakes it off in not even one day? The secret sauce is sugar. The frog's liver pushes so much glucose into the frog's cell that it acts like an antifreeze. It protects the cells from freezing, binds the water molecules inside the cells, and prevents cell dehydration. So everything is frozen except the cells and some organs, and he comes back to life like the last 8 months were just a big nap. Number 9. The dung beetle. Relative to their size, the dung beetle is the strongest animal on the planet. It can push up to 1,000 times its body weight for really long distances. Relatively speaking, it's like you pushing around 20 elephants. Granted, what they choose to push is poop, but it's still very impressive. Being the strongest on the planet is not even the true superpower of this disgusting little monster. See, the dung pile is a treasure only true connoisseurs can appreciate. The problem is a lot of competition is out there and everybody wants a piece of the cake. The first step is to gather the meal. That's easy work. With strong arms and the willingness to shove your face in shit, the dung beetle uses its arms and head to roll a massive ball of happiness. But then the hard part is getting this thing as far away from the competition and in the shortest time possible. The African dung beetle does this using polarized light from the moon. When the moonlight hits particles in the atmosphere, it creates certain patterns that the beetle uses. A lot of insects, bees included, use polarized light to navigate, but the key difference is that they use polarized sunlight, and moonlight, although just a reflection of sunlight, is a million times weaker. And so far, the dung beetle is the only animal that can perceive and use it in any way. They use it to navigate in a straight line, which is the most boring but also the fastest way to escape. But if the moonlight is weaker because of light pollution, for example, then the way home will be a lot more chaotic and the cops will definitely have some questions. Number 8. The cougar. Known by many names, the puma, the mountain lion, the cougar. These guys are insane jumpers. From a standing position, they can jump 15 feet vertically, and with some prep time and a running start, it can clear a good 40 feet horizontally. So even with a 40 feet head start, it only takes a jump. It can accomplish this because of all the cats, it has the longest hind legs relative to its body. Its front paws are larger than its hind paws, so once it lands on something, it doesn't let go. Like all cats, it has retractable claws. Exactly like your cat at home, this keeps them sharp when not in use. But unlike your cat, the cougar doesn't need to keep its claws sharp to destroy everything you love, but rather to catch prey and to quickly climb trees to escape predators. Well, it technically doesn't have any natural predators, but sometimes they need to compete with wolves, jaguars, or even bears. Now, usually a wolf is no threat to a mountain lion, but wolves don't usually play fair, and the cougar will quickly find a tree to climb. But what really pisses off the mountain lion is the fact that the cat family splits into 2 subfamilies, the big cats and the small cats. And despite being the world's largest cat, only after the tiger, the lion and the jaguar, the mountain lion is still a member of the small cats family. Even the leopard is part of the big cats, even though he is smaller than the mountain lion. It's just unfair, but I guess a cougar infiltrating a group of smaller, less experienced members of its own species is just a normal cougar thing to do. Number 7. Sharks. The shark's impressive strength and his bite force are the least impressive thing about this prehistoric monster. Sharks have electroreceptor organs. These are the little black spots near the nose of the shark, called, and I am sure I will butcher this, ampulla of Lorenzini. It gives the shark the ability to detect electrical currents. See, every single animal creates electrical currents. When our heart beats, for example, it also creates electricity. That's the whole idea behind the EKG. And any muscle that moves creates a small electrical current. Now, if a shark is living in your house, he will not sense your muscle movement, because air does not conduct these electrical currents. But they tend to spend most of their time in the ocean, and salt water, on the other hand, is a great conductor. So if any fish is twitching a muscle near a shark, and who wouldn't twitch near these guys, well, the shark senses it right away. And you don't ever want to get the attention of something with rows and rows of teeth. Fun fact, they actually never stop creating new teeth. Their gums work like a conveyor belt. When a tooth breaks in the front row, a tooth in the row behind it is ready to replace it. A shark has everything you want in a killing machine, incredibly strong, with an insane sense of smell, they sense electrical signals, and they have great vision. And on top of all that, they are not as dumb as they look. When hunting seals, for example, the great white shark will put the sign behind it to hide his approach. Some sharks, like the bull shark, can travel between salt water and fresh water, so nowhere is really safe. And if all this was not enough to put them on the list, some sharks have been known to give a virgin birth by something called parthenogenesis, which is a fancy Greek word that means a female can produce an embryo without fertilizing the egg with sperm. Number 6. The starfish. When a starfish wants to eat something too big for its mouth, they just throw their stomach at their prey and start digesting it outside of their bodies. Once it's partially digested, they pull back their stomach inside. And you know how we are all stuck with the old sperm and egg thing to reproduce? Well, the starfish can reproduce in 3 different ways. Number 1 is the old-fashioned way: a male, a female, and a bad movie. Number 2, the starfish splits itself into 2, and each half grows into a fully formed starfish, and a sexual reproduction known as fissiparity. And number 3, the starfish sometimes cuts off one of its limbs, a process called autotomy, as a distraction against predators or just because they got stuck. And sometimes these limbs can grow into a whole starfish, but most of the time they just get bad bacterial infections and die. Speaking of lost arms, the starfish can regenerate the whole thing, but it will take a while. But they don't tend to overthink it, mostly because they don't have a brain. And if you ever have a chance to talk to a marine biologist and want them to fall in love with you, tell them starfish is a stupid name, it's not even a fish, no gills, no scales, no fins, it should be called sea star. Number 5. The mantis shrimp. When you hear that this guy's punch is so powerful, it releases so much energy that it reaches near the temperature of the sun, my guess is that you would want to know how. And to understand this guy's freaky power, we need to touch on a little bit of chemistry. Now, in vet school, I slept through most of my chemistry classes, but this stuff is actually fascinating. It all comes from one punch. So let me break down this punch because it is as fast as a 22 caliber bullet, and that's 50 times the speed of one blink. First, the arm swings, and before it even reaches the target, it pushes away water at a really high speed. Then once it hits the target, it rapidly bounces back. The water disturbance creates a small area of low pressure, but when water is put under really low pressure, it evaporates and creates bubbles called cavitational bubbles. This bubble finds itself surrounded by low pressure, but the pressure starts to normalize, and the higher the pressure around the bubble goes, the more the bubble is compressed and begins to implode. And here is where the magic happens. When the bubble collapses, it releases a huge amount of energy, reaching 4,800 degrees Celsius, but the whole thing happens in a fraction of a second. So it delivers 2 blows with a single punch. First the punch, and then the bubble burst, dealing extra damage. And because of a complex cushion system that absorbs the impact, they are rarely hurt even after this punch that has no business being this strong. Number 4, the eagle. Never mind the fact that they are professional killers that can falcon punch you straight to the hospital. The true superpower of the eagle is his eyesight. The eagle has perfect vision. But I can hear you say, I also have perfect vision. The doctor said I have 20/20 vision. Well, 20/20 is actually average. It's just a trick ophthalmologists use to make you feel better. You are average. It just means you can perfectly see a set row of the chart from 20 feet away. Some people have 20/15 vision and can see what we can see at 15 feet from 20 feet away. The eagle, on the other hand, has 25 vision, meaning whatever looks clear to you at 5 feet looks perfect 20 feet away for the eagle. And just as a reference, at 20/50 you are not allowed to drive, and at 2200 you are considered legally blind and can only see the big letter on the chart. Not only can the eagle see from further away, but while we have a visual field of 180 degrees, they have a 340-degree field of vision. You can never sneak up on them, and why would you want to? And just to make us feel extra shitty about our eyes, they can see colors much more vividly, they see ultraviolet light, can far better distinguish between shades, and we have absolutely no way to imagine what it looks like for them. Number 3. Bats. This unholy creature is a mammal. In fact, it is the only mammal that can fly, but since there are more than 1,000 species of bats, they make up 20% of all mammals on Earth. So statistically speaking, 1 out of 5 mammals can fly. Unlike the eagle, they have extremely bad eyes, almost making us feel good about our own. But then they hit you with the ability to echolocate, and that's just some superhero nonsense. Bats can send sound waves. These waves will bounce off everything around them, and by listening to the echo, a bat will map the entire picture, including small flying insects which the bat can hunt on the fly. And they are very good at it. In 1 minute, they can find and eat 10 mosquitoes, but it takes me 15 goddamn minutes to find that one mosquito that wouldn't let me sleep. When they are on the hunt, their heart beats at around 1000 beats per minute, and when resting, they slow it down to a cool 200. Imagine 5x in your heart rate to go jogging, because if you do, you are not coming back from that run. They get a bad rep because of how they look and the whole blood-sucking thing. But they are essential for the control of insect populations, and they may not be as cute as a bee, but they are very good pollinizers too. There are only 3 species of blood-sucking vampires, but they usually prefer livestock. They rarely ever go after humans. Number 2. The Cephalopod. The cephalopod can move up to 25 miles per hour in a very cartoonish way, and to understand this, a quick anatomy lesson. Water flows in the mantle cavity. It is held there under pressure because all of the other orifices are closed except for the funnel. When the muscle wall squeezes the water through the funnel, the cephalopod literally goes into jet propulsion mode. But they can control the speed and direction, so it's the perfect tool to both hunt prey and escape predators. And when you're older than dinosaurs, fossil records dating 500 million years ago, you better have more than one trick up your sleeve. They got the best camouflage in the world. Most cephalopods can John Cena themselves so well that they completely blend into their environment. They are using chromatophores. These are cells all over their bodies. Each of these cells has a small sac filled with a different color pigment. By stretching these sacs, they can change the brightness of each color to perfectly match the background. They can also change their texture just to confuse everybody even more. And number 1, the hummingbird. The hummingbird is what happens when a bird likes a bee a little too much. You end up with a tiny bird that can beat its wing up to 80 times per second, and it's the only bird that can fly in all directions while also being able to just hover in place. They can do this because their shoulder joint allows the wing to rotate 180 degrees. With these tiny wings, you would think they can't get very far, but some species migrate from Mexico to Alaska every spring, and that's a 4,000-mile trip, and you will never see them traveling in groups because they have no friends and only travel alone. These guys feed on nectar, and all birds who feed on nectar are aggressive little shits. Why? Because when your food source is flowers, basically a bright-looking nature candy, it attracts a lot of attention, so they evolved to be very aggressive toward any competition. When they are finally just chilling on a branch, they take about 150 breaths per minute. That's an insanely high metabolism, and to keep this tiny rage machine going, they tend to eat sugary goods every 10 minutes, and they can reach blood sugar levels that would kill most animals out there, humans included. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.